So I'm on my way out to head over to Intramuros to attend a mobilization where we protest the numerous instances of violations and fraud in the recent 2020.
But there will be so much more of us as we continue to fight for our future.
But together, our strength in numbers has the potential to impact lasting and powerful change in climate policy and justice.
The fight for climate justice might be long and arduous, but it is not hopeless.
So the more I learned about the climate crisis, the more I really began to see how deeply intertwined it is with all aspects of our lives.
I'm recently graduating with a Bachelor of Science in Molecular Biology, but ever since I was a freshman, I've been involved in organizing science students to be more conscious of environmental and climate issues and mobilized to address them, even with our seemingly limited capacity.
I'm currently a third-year undergraduate student taking BS Public Health, and I mostly do campaign and propaganda work for my environment, science, and technology-based advocacy organization in my university.
I'm currently a college student majoring in biology, and as a climate activist, I'm a member of various youth organizations that advocate for the conservation of our country's wildlife biodiversity and, of course, uphold climate justice.
I'm the National Chairperson of Sari Buhay, an environmental organization focused on the community-centered conservation of biodiversity, and of course, fighting for the protection of biodiversity here in the Philippines goes hand in hand with the fight for climate justice, because one of the main causes of biodiversity loss is widespread habitat destruction driven by the rapidly changing climate.
Now, I'm a physics major, so of course that makes me a student with sciences, and we know scientists should be involved in the climate struggle, which is why I am organizing and mobilizing my college to be part of the climate justice movement, to pressure people in power to act now, because we have to act now, of course.
So, other than being an aspiring high school biology teacher, I am also currently a member of Agham Youth Pilipinas. So, both as a biology teacher and as an activist, I find it very important to be able to educate our youth about the importance of climate justice and taking care of our environment.
I am a third-year college student taking up BS Computer Science, and I fight for climate justice in the youth organizations that I'm part of. Being a climate activist gives me more awareness of how technology is used to either harm or help the earth. And as a computer science student, I want to use technology to serve the planet.
I am a BS Public Health student and also a member of cause-oriented organizations in the university, wherein I join educational discussions, I engage in campaign and propaganda, and also join protests as a commitment to my advocacies, including the environment, science, and health. I think what got me into climate activism is simply my appreciation for nature and the environment. I've always enjoyed watching nature documentaries, and back in elementary school, it only started as conserve the trees, save the animals, and the like. But as my world widened, so as my perspectives in the movement, and here I am now, committed in this fight for climate justice.
Started being a climate activist back when I was in 10th grade because I took up an environmental science elective, and it was really an eye-opener.
I first realized how important fighting for our climate and environment was when I was working with indigenous people who had to leave their ancestral lands due to threats of greedy corporations seeking to exploit natural resources in the area. Later on, seeing the predictions of how my university would be underwater within 30 years if we didn't do anything about climate change really drove the point home for me.
In my hometown, we live near a river and it was very prone to overflowing when a strong typhoon hit. So every time there's a typhoon, our house would get flooded until the second floor, and these typhoons would just keep getting worse and worse. My neighbors and my family tried to keep our homes by putting cement in the first floor and forcibly raising our houses, but I know that this is only a temporary solution and it is not the cure. Ultimately, I don't want our climate adaptation strategies to essentially be only stopgap solutions like these, so I decided to join the fight for climate action.
When you keep on reading articles and write case studies or whatever paper regarding the Philippines' state of ecology, you can't help but ask yourself, well, what else can I do, right? And with the Philippines' active history of mass struggle, you can only expect that climate movements will emerge in our country. I mean, the Philippines is one of the most vulnerable countries to environmental disasters, so I figured why not get organized and mobilize myself.
I attended the first global climate strike here in the Philippines, which was organized by some of my friends, and from there I started getting involved in the youth climate movement. So the more I learned about the climate crisis, the more I really began to see how deeply intertwined it is with all aspects of our lives. So you begin to see how climate justice is social justice and environmental justice. You begin to see how the call for climate action is a struggle that encompasses different sectors of society and nature as well. So really, the more you learn about it, the more you can't help but take action because everyone's future here is at stake.
Now, when I was younger, because I still am young, I used to consume a lot of sci-fi stories that depicted the world as utopian. And when I see news on the climate emergency and climate imperialism, I basically get disappointed. Where are we going to get the same utopian world? And then, which basically got me interested in climate activism, which is kind of shallow, but it's a start.
I don't really have a compelling story on how I got into climate justice, but I am an activist in the science and technology sector first and foremost. And since defending the environment is one of our main goals, joining YACAP and being a part of the fight for climate justice seemed like the natural next step.
I remember that for the first time in my life, my grandmother's house was flooded in 2009 because of Typhoon Ketsana. After they evacuated and lived with us for a while, they came back to a house that was filled with mud. The impact on the lives of my relatives was horrifying, and this memory reminds me that climate activism is not just political, it's deeply personal. The lives of my family are at stake. So to fight for the earth is to fight for the future of our loved ones.
I think it's important for the youth to be climate justice activists because we are the ones who will be inheriting this planet, and if we don't do anything now, it might be too late.
The Philippines is one of the countries most vulnerable to the impacts of climate change. As typhoons, droughts, and aberrant weather patterns affect our fellow Filipinos' way of life, it becomes our duty as this nation's youth to stand up and speak up for climate justice.
As the ones who will be living on this planet 30, 50, 70 years from now, it is well within our rights to fight for a better future. It is unfortunate that such a great responsibility falls on us, but if the people and institutions in power won't do anything about it, it is up to us to take our future into our own hands.
Regardless of what we're doing in our lives or whatever course we major in, any and all of these things are affected by the climate crisis we're experiencing. And we are the people who will inherit what becomes of our world. So it's only right for us to fight for climate justice.
So of course, everyone is affected by the climate crisis, but there are some people who bear the brunt of it more heavily than others. The youth, for example, we're the ones who will inherit this earth and what's left of it in the future, because we're the ones who will be living long enough to do so. It's important for us to act now if we want to see a livable future for all, and this future is indeed possible as long as we act together.
should become climate justice activists because we will be inheriting the earth, and we will be bearing the brunt of climate disaster along with our families and the most marginalized people. Alone, we might be underestimated because we're young, but together, our strength in numbers has the potential to impact lasting and powerful change in climate policy and justice.
Can we imagine a better world? Can we imagine a world where progress and nature don't have to compete? I believe the youth has the biggest capacity to imagine a better world. And if we can imagine it, we can build it. And if we can build it, we can make real change. A better world is possible through our collective action.
You don't have to be alone in your fight for climate justice. There are environmental organizations like Fridays for Future, Sari Buhay National, and of course, YACAP that will amplify your voice as we all collectively ask for environmental accountability from the people in power. The fight for climate justice might be long and arduous, but it is not hopeless.
It is always a good reminder that we are not alone in this fight, and as we collectively suffer the effects of climate crisis, all the more that we should collectively resist the forces that enable this mess. So let us continue to hold on to one another and to our aspirations.
Over the past few years, climate activism has had a lot of traction with both local and international media. And I think it's important for the youth to continue doing so, to raise awareness, because if we won't do it, who else will?
To the youth and fellow activists out there, it's never too late to always fight for climate justice. For as long as we stand with the most affected people and areas, we not only hope for a better future, but we also act on it. And I think we'll be unstoppable because a better world has always been possible.
To my fellow youth, take strength in knowing that you are walking the right path. Take strength in the fact that you are not alone in walking this path. There are so many of us here and around the world, and believe that there will be so much more of us as we continue to fight for our future.
I hope you all never lose hope in the fight for climate justice. I might not be able to know all of your names and faces, but I can feel your strength and love for the people on our planet, and this is what pushes me forward. This is a struggle, but as long as we stand firm and collectively push forward together, a better world and a more just, sustainable future is possible.
There are only two choices there. Either we fight for a chance for survival or we do nothing. So I'm imploring all of us to fight for a chance.